Imagine being just 5 years old and already learning how to survive in one of the harshest environments on Earth. No schools, no smartphones, no electricity, no supermarkets, no modern comforts. This was the reality for Viking children over 1,000 years ago. When most people think about Vikings, they imagine fierce warriors sailing across stormy seas, raiding distant lands, and fighting brutal battles. But every legendary warrior, explorer, and chieftain once began life as a child in a small Scandinavian village. So what was it really like to grow up as a Viking? The answer is far more fascinating than most people realize. From the moment a child was born, their life was shaped by a world where survival came before everything else. Life in Viking society was incredibly difficult. Long winters brought freezing temperatures and endless darkness. Food shortages were common. Diseases spread easily, and enemies could appear without warning. In such a dangerous world, every member of the family had to contribute, even children. Unlike today, childhood did not last very long. Viking parents believed that children needed to learn practical skills as early as possible. Every lesson could one day mean the difference between life and death. As toddlers, children spent most of their time observing the adults around them. They watched their parents work. They watched animals being cared for. They watched boats being repaired. They watched food being prepared. And little by little, they began learning the skills they would need for the rest of their lives. By the age of 6 or 7, many Viking children were already helping with daily tasks. Boys often accompanied their fathers into the fields, forests, and fishing grounds. They learned how to chop wood, how to use simple tools, how to hunt small animals, how to fish, and how to survive outdoors. But contrary to popular belief, not every Viking boy grew up to become a warrior. Many became far. Girls also began learning responsibilities at a very young age. They worked alongside their mothers and other women in the household. They learned how to prepare food, how to weave cloth, how to make clothing, how to care for younger children, and how to manage the resources of a household. These skills were not considered minor tasks. In Viking society, keeping a family alive through a brutal winter required tremendous knowledge and discipline. A successful household depended heavily on the abilities of its women. In fact, Viking women enjoyed more rights and freedoms than many women living elsewhere in Europe at the time. They could own property. They could inherit wealth. They could manage farms. And in some cases, they held significant influence within their communities. As a result, Viking girls were often trained to become capable leaders of their households. One of the most important parts of childhood was learning through stories. During the long winter nights, families gathered around the fire. With darkness stretching across much of the day, storytelling became a central part of Viking life. Children listened carefully as elders shared tales of gods, heroes, monsters, and ancient battles. They heard stories about Odin, the wise and mysterious ruler of the gods. They learned about Thor, whose mighty hammer protected both gods and humans from powerful enemies. They listened to tales of Loki, the clever trickster whose actions often led to chaos. These stories were more than entertainment. They were lessons. Through these myths, children learned values that Viking society admired: courage, honor, loyalty, wisdom, and perseverance. The stories taught them how a person should behave and how they wanted to be remembered after death. For Vikings, reputation was everything. A person's name could live on for generations if they achieved something worthy of remembrance. Children were taught this from an early age. Another important part of Viking childhood was play. Archaeologists have discovered many toys in former Viking settlements: wooden boats, miniature weapons, carved animals, small dolls. These discoveries reveal something surprising. Viking children played just like children today, but many of their games also served a practical purpose. Running races helped build stamina. Wrestling improved strength. Competitive games encouraged courage and resilience. Even simple activities helped prepare children for the challenges of adulthood. Physical fitness was highly valued. A strong body increased a person's chances of survival. As children grew older, their responsibilities increased. By their early teenage years, many were already taking on adult duties. Boys might join fishing expeditions. Some traveled with merchants. Others began formal combat training. They learned how to use shields, how to handle axes, and how to fight as part of a group. But becoming a warrior was only one possible path. Trade was also extremely important in Viking society. Many young men learned navigation, negotiation, and craftsmanship instead of warfare. Girls took on greater household responsibilities. They learned how to manage food supplies, how to organize workers, and how to oversee the operations of a farm or settlement. In many ways, they became the backbone of Viking family life. Education in Viking society looked very different from modern education. There were no classrooms, no textbooks, no exams. Knowledge was passed down through observation and experience. Children learned by watching. They learned by doing. And they learned by making mistakes. If a boy wanted to become a skilled sailor, he spent time with experienced sailors. If a girl wanted to master weaving, she worked alongside skilled weavers. This hands-on approach allowed practical knowledge to pass from one generation to the next, and it worked remarkably well. The Vikings became